Hey there, folks. Tonight, we're diving into a story that's got it all: booze, horses, and a legal precedent that echoes through the ages. Buckle up as we rewind the clock to 1897, back when the only horsepower you'd find on the road was, well, actual horsepower. We're talking about the first ever drunk driving arrest. Yeah, you heard that right. Before cars, there were carriages, and before breathalyzers, there were just really concerned horses. And as we all know, a concerned horse is not a good sign. So grab a pint, responsibly of course, and let's take a trip back to a time when the streets of London were lit by gaslight. Trust me, this is one history lesson you won't want to sleep through. Imagine London in 1897. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing, transforming the city into a bustling metropolis. Factories are popping up like mushrooms after the rain, churning out newfangled inventions left and right. Among these innovations is the horseless carriage, a noisy, smoke-belching contraption that's starting to share the road with more traditional horse-drawn vehicles. But here's the thing, nobody really knew what they were doing with these newfangled machines. There were no traffic lights, no speed limits, and certainly no driver's ed courses. It was basically the Wild West, but with fewer saloons and a lot more cobblestones. People treated the roads like their own personal racetracks, often with disastrous consequences. Accidents were common, and pedestrians, well, let's just say they didn't have the right of way. It was a time of great change and even greater chaos, a perfect storm brewing for a legal precedent to be set. Our story centers around a chap named George Smith, a London cab driver trying to make his way in this rapidly changing world. Now, George wasn't a bad bloke, just a product of his time. Like many working-class Londoners, a pint or two at the pub after a long day was practically a religious experience. On September 10, 1897, George decided to unwind at his local watering hole. Picture it, a dimly lit pub filled with the smell of stale beer and sawdust, the murmur of conversations, and the occasional boisterous laugh. George, probably still in his cab driver attire, belly up to the bar, joining his mates for a night of revelry. But as the night wore on, and the pints turned into, well, let's just say more pints, George might have gotten a little overconfident. Little did he know, this seemingly ordinary night would soon land him in the annals of history. And not the good kind of annals either. September 10th, 1897. A wild ride through history. Now, the details of what exactly transpired after George left the pub are a bit hazy. Some say he stumbled out, barely able to stand, let alone control a horse-drawn carriage. Whatever actually happened, one thing is for sure. George, in his infinite wisdom, decided to ditch the horse and take one of those newfangled horseless carriages for a spin. This, as you can imagine, did not go well. Picture it, a cobblestone street, slick with rain, lit only by the flickering gaslights, and George, our fearless leader, careening down the road in a cloud of smoke and questionable judgment. It wasn't long before the inevitable happened. George, unable to navigate the intricacies of, not crashing, plowed his horseless carriage into a lamppost. The sound of splintering wood and the hiss of escaping gas probably woke up half the neighborhood. The aftermath, a ripple effect on road safety. The police arrived, drawn by the commotion and the pungent aroma of both broken lamplight and poor life choices. Now remember, this was 1897. Nobody had ever arrested anyone for crashing a car while drunk. Heck, they'd barely invented the word automobile yet. But, bless their hearts, those bobbies were not about to let a little thing like lack of precedent stop them from upholding the law. George, dazed but miraculously unharmed, was hauled out of the wreckage and promptly arrested. The charges? Being drunk in charge of a carriage? Not exactly the catchiest legal term, but hey, they were working with what they had. News of George's arrest spread like wildfire. Here was a man who had not only managed to crash one of those newfangled contraptions, but had done so while completely sloshed. The public was outraged. From horse-drawn carriages to Teslas, a legacy of responsibility. George Smith's drunken escapade might seem like a hilarious anecdote now, a cautionary tale from a simpler time. But it's more than that. It's a reminder that some things never change. The allure of the open road, the thrill of speed, and the unfortunate tendency of some individuals to mix those things with alcohol, these are constants in human nature. From those horse-drawn carriages to today's sleek Teslas, one thing remains the same: the responsibility we have to operate these powerful machines with care and sobriety. George's story, for all its comedic value, is ultimately a tragic one. It's a story of poor judgment with potentially life-altering consequences. So, next time you're tempted to get behind the wheel after a few drinks, remember George Smith, the London cabbie who made history by being the first person ever arrested for drunk driving. And then for everyone's sake, call a cab, order an Uber, or just stay put.